worked fine except for that.
Yeah, I just want to see what they want to get out. All right, everybody. Are you hearing me? Okay. We're having some audio. Oh, you know, maybe that moving. Could you have a mute? You could try real quick.
Do what now?
Do you have a mute on your
audio? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, when you mute, yeah, now I don't get the noisy audio. Yeah, there's an echo.
It's probably my microphone then.
Yeah, I think that's happening. So yeah, okay, we'll have to do that. So that's better. Yeah, when you mute, Matt, when I got to talk, you're going to have to mute, and then I'll be quiet, and then let you talk, and you can unmute, and I will mute myself, and we'll see if this works. Thanks, Brad. Welcome to the show, everybody. We got Matt Tinsman, MLF coangler from the Great Lakes and Illini division here. Welcome, Matt, to the show.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Hey, where are you coming from today?
I live in East Peoria, Illinois.
Oh yeah, that's right. You live up by Dustin. Somehow I was thinking you were up in Wisconsin. You just fish up there a bunch. So why don't you give us a little background on what you got into fishing and how you got into MLF and kind of how your journey's landed up to where you are now.
Well, I've been fishing since I was 3-4 years old. My grandpa took me when we lived down in Arkansas. But I've fished a lot in Illinois and a lot in Missouri, a lot in Arkansas. Basically, I started fishing tournaments after I started working at the Bass Pro Shops in East Peoria. I started working there during COVID in 2020, and I started fishing BFLs in 2021.
So, did you start in
What about Illini division?
Yeah, where do you start fishing, in Illini or the Great Lakes up there in Wisconsin, or both? What you been doing here the last few years?
So in 2021, I fished all the Illini events. I fished 3 events down in the Missouri division. What do they call that? The Ozark division. And I fished a couple Hoosier division, just trying to figure out, like where I was going to want to fish. What I thought my best chance of doing well was to fish as many as possible. And that was actually not true. The best chance of doing well is to pick one division and stick with it and learn everything about the lakes and even fish them before you start fishing tournaments. So many of these guys have success because they start fishing on their home lake. And here in Central Illinois, you have no home lake. There's the Illinois River is our home water, and they haven't fished a bass tournament here since like the 90s. But I fished all those different divisions, and I started the Great Lakes division basically halfway through the season. And I really liked it. And then the next year I did it and Illini. And then in 2023 I did it and Illini. And I got tired of Illini. I started in 2024. I think I did Great Lakes and LBO, Land Between the Lakes. And I qualified for both those regionals. And every time I fished Illini, I qualified for the regional. I usually finish in the top 25, but I couldn't crack that top 10 at the end of the season. But It's, you'd have a bad event Ren, or you'd have a bad event Shelbyville, and it'd mess it up. But I really like the Great Lakes. I really like fishing moving water. I like smallmouth. I like largemouth, and it's where I think I fit. I like it a lot.
Yeah, river fishing. In fact, our regional is going to be up in Quad Cities again this year, right up your alley. I talked with a lot of Great Lakes there guys there last year. Both my boaters, both days were from up in Wisconsin, La Crosse area here, and they were just really talking up how good those pools are. You you guys don't have as long of a fishing season, but it's a much better intense fishing season from what I hear. You want to talk about that, how fishing is up there, and what the differences are?
I've never been on those pools. I was gonna go to that regional. They had a spot because I had only fished like three of the three or four of the events, and I was like just on the edge. And they called me and said, "You're in." And then they called me and said, "Nope, we got boaters dropping out left and right, so you're not in." And I was like, "That's okay. I didn't really qualify for it anyway." And so I've never fished up there. I fished on the Rock River, and I fished around there, but I've never really been out on the river on those pools at all. It's a lot of hard cover, a lot of rock, a lot of wing dams, a lot of current eddies, current breaks, little stuff that you might not notice.
Yeah, that's something down here in recent Illini years. We used to go down to the Ohio River and launch out of Paducah. Um, and then, lately we haven't been doing that. It's tough fishing in the Ohio.
That's my favorite Illini event. I want to go up to Tennessee, or up the what's the other one? Not Cumberland. Is it Cumberland? Yeah, go up to Cumberland and fish smallmouth and spotted bass. That's what I like.
Yeah, and it was totally different fishing, and especially when we get back up into the regional, it's going to be river fishing again here. So, that might be a good direction to take here, is kind of co-angling strategies and river strategies here. Obviously, you've been pretty darn successful here co-angling. Let's talk about that maybe in general here, what your co-angling strategies are, and then how they're different from a lake compared to the river systems.
Well, my strategy basically as a co-angler is to fish what he doesn't and get the bites that he doesn't. I mean, that probably sounds overly obvious, but I got fifth place up on the Mississippi at the Prairie du Chien event in 2023. And I caught every single one of those fish dragging a Carolina rig straight behind the boat, probably 40 yards back, because he had us right on the bank. And it was a sharp drop off. So he's throwing into 2 feet to 4 feet of water while he's driving the boat over 7 to 10 feet of water. And I can either make a 4-foot pitch out to the side of the boat into a foot of water that I can see there's no fish in, or I can bomb out to deep water, or I can drag straight behind the boat. And I put on a big creature bait. I like the Destroyer from Missile a lot. It's got a big profile, but when they get it, there's not a lot of plastic there because it's got the ribs. When they get it, there's not a lot to foul hook, so you don't end up missing a lot of those fish. Because when you're what I call dragging anything straight behind the boat, whether it's a Carolina rig, a jig, a free rig, a near weightless Senko, even an underspin, I call that back dragging. So when I'm back dragging a Carolina rig, I want just enough weight to tick bottom, because if it gets down in any kind of crevice or nook and cranny in a log, I want to be able to do the whole grab my line and bowstring, pop that out before the boater breaks me off, because he's not stopping. Most of the time they don't stop, especially if they know you're hung up way back there. And you just want to tick right along the top of whatever cover. And the day that I got 5th place, I mean, we'd only been fishing half an hour, but we literally were like 30 seconds from launch. First of all, that morning he'd forgotten his graph, so we had to go from the flag boat all the way back to the launch. I had to run up to his truck, get out the graph, bring it back, install it. We had to idle back out to the flag boat. He says, "Don't worry, we're not going far." And he literally, he idles like 50 yards and we start fishing. He probably had 2 or 3. And so I started dragging that deeper behind the boat. And once I started hitting cover, I started getting bit. And by the time I had 3 fish, 2 of them back to back, he figured out that he was too deep and he backed off and started casting at what I was casting at. And that made it harder to get my last 2 fish. But I got the last 2 and I made 5th that day. But yeah, strategies like that, target the water column that they're not targeting. And I hate back dragging because the boat has gone over those fish. The sonar has pinged those fish. They've heard the trolling motor. They've probably felt the trolling motor. And that's why you got to get it 40, 50 yards back there, because you want those fish that have either not been spooked, but they've calmed down a little bit, or the ones that did spook and they're filtering back in, like whether you're on riprap or just a sharp, steep bank. And you want to present a bait to those fish where the boat is no longer directly over top of them. And I know some guys do it with a Senko. They just throw a weightless Senko back there and just keep feeding out line, and they get hung up and they break off and they get to retie, but it works. Otherwise, I'll fish the same angle that the boater's fishing, but out of the back corner. So if he's throwing a spinnerbait to, the front left, I'm going to throw a chatterbait out the back right. And you've got to compensate for that because the boat is moving away from your target. You're pulling the boat you're pulling the bait with the boat. So you've got to slow down your crank. You've got to extend your cast harder because you're moving away from your target. And you've got to pull out line, you get that bait to drop, especially if you're flipping any kind of reeds or laydowns or anything. And another thing that a guy told me before I fished my first event, he said, you got to pick your moment. You got to pick your cast. You might only get one shot at a laydown. If you make it too soon, you miss the right angle. So you got to choose your moments. There's this, I don't know, there's tons of stuff. And what you think is going to work, sometimes it just doesn't work at all. Like at my last event, I had a guy frogging, and I was sure that if he was getting them frogging, I would just get them, like either throw into the pockets or the open water, and they just weren't there. I got one on a frog, he got none.
Hey, quick question. You got to mute there. Yeah, thank you. It's a little manual here. A couple questions to follow up on. Back to the Carolina rig. We've discussed that a few times. That was a very good point you made about the weight size. Normally you can throw whatever weight you want, or some people do here. What size weight do you use? And, how do you peg the sinker or not peg the sinker? Or you have a not slip through sinker or whatever? Do you like tungsten versus lead? Because as a coangler, Carolina rig comes out a lot for us, and dragging in back of the boat here. So I know guys would maybe be a little more interested in your pros and cons, and for something like that here, what's your setup? What's your other plastics you might throw on it, and length of your leader?
So my go-to weight is a 1/2 ounce. If it's really deep and he's moving pretty fast, or if there's a lot of current, I'll go up to 3/4, but typically a 1/2 ounce. The sinker that I use is actually pretty specific, and I'm actually kind of ashamed I don't remember the name of it. It has a very weird name. If you go on Tackle Warehouse and you look at Carolina rig sinkers, it's lead and it's shaped like a sled. And then at the top, it's got an eye where you thread the line, but then coming up out of the back, it's got another metal loop that you slide the line through. So it rides on 2 metal loops, and it's got an upturned sled shaped nose, and it comes over and through wood and rock better than anything else I've ever used. I then put a a tungsten bead behind it, and then I put a clacker. Like it's not the brass kind. I don't like the brass clackers. I think they rub your line, especially the cheaper ones. But it's a ceramic clacker, and so then I run that to a barrel swivel, and then typically, I mean, it depends on current. It depends on how fast I'm moving it. It depends on how big the trailer is. But I typically use 17-pound mono or fluoro. So in a lake, I'm pretty much always going to go with mono because I want it to ride up a little bit. But in current, mono tends to keep that bait too far off the bottom. So I'll throw fluorocarbon on in current because it keeps it down closer to the bottom. I think those fish, when they're right behind a current break, if that bait is even 6 inches too far out of the strike zone, they're not going to go get it. So in current, I like to keep it low. The opposite of that is if you're in like a backwater. Like one time I was fishing with the Great Lakes guys will know who I'm talking about, Tom Moan. He won the Super. I was with him the first day, and he was Carolina rigging, and I was Carolina rigging. And I could not get a bite. I was ripping my hair out. He was pulling 3 and 4 pound smallmouth up with his Carolina rig, and I could not get a bite. And this is just, like 2 events after I got fifth with it. And I'm like, what is going on? I mean, I was switching plastics. I was trying different scents. I was switching from mono to fluoro, heavy hooks, light hooks. I don't know what it was. I still don't know what it was. But he was throwing an Ultra Vibe speed craw, 3.5-inch UV speed craw. And I mean, moving it super slow. There was scattered eelgrass everywhere. And it was just a backwater kind of, not really, I mean, it was still main river, but it wasn't current main river. It was like a backwater pocket. We were literally in like a bowl. He called it a bowl-shaped area, and just scattered eelgrass. And I don't know what I was doing wrong with it that day, because I tried everything. But I should have just thrown a Ned rig around. If I had just thrown a Ned rig around, I probably would have got a couple. I only needed 2 fish to make the next day, but I didn't get them. So what was your other question? Like, what other plastics? Yeah, I'll downsize to like a UV speed craw. I'll throw a beaver on, but generally not in current. In current, I want something that kind of just keeps moving the whole time. The Destroyer is a good one. Guys swear by the brush hog, but something about those loops that come off the side of the brush hog cause it to just twist constantly for me, and I don't like it to twist. Otherwise, I mean, you can Carolina rig anything. You can throw a fluke on there, Senko, a lizard. A lizard is one of my favorites. I'll throw the 8-inch Magnum Zoom lizard in the spring, and then in the summertime, I'll actually back off to the 6. I'll throw that smaller size on the 6-inch.
What about hooks? What kind of hooks?
I just like a regular Ultra. I mean, not Ultra. Well, yeah, the Ultra Mustad Ultra Lock. They've got the new ones that come in the brown packaging. What are they? I can't remember what they're called. The tack offset is the worm hook, but I just like the wide gap 1X, usually a 1X or a 2X heavy wire. If I'm throwing fluorocarbon, if I have to run a lighter mono leader, I'll back off to like a lighter owner screw lock hook. But yeah, I like owner screw locks, and I like Mustad Ultra points.
Then the other thing was, the Ned rig. Not too many people bring that up a lot, but when the bite is tough, man, Ned rigs are it.
Well, the thing about the spot we were fishing is it was basically get it out there and drag it a ways, because there's so much floating eelgrass. Any kind of moving bait just instantly became bogged up. You couldn't really throw a jerk bait. You couldn't throw a chatterbait. Even trying to drag a Texas rig, it got balled up on your sinker within minutes. I mean, every time we pulled in with our Carolina rig, the sinker would have weeds on it, and then your leader would hopefully still be free, but often even the bait still would have a strand of grass on it. If I had just gotten that Ned rig out there and just drug it till it got heavy, just drug it till it got heavy, and then you know that the grass is bogged up on there, and you reel in and try another spot. And I honestly, something that whenever you're in one of those gotta get a bite situations, I say my motto is when in doubt, throw the Senko out. And I mean, just get a Senko out there and let it soak and let it do a thing. If I had done that, which I had done 2 days before in practice, catching smallmouth and eelgrass, I probably also would have got a fish or two. But you don't think about those things when it's crunch time. That's why I started, I don't know, it's like I don't want to say like a catchphrase, but it's just like my motto in my head to be focused every cast. You don't stretch your back and yawn and look at the sky and, oh my God, I just got a bite and I missed it. You got to stay focused every cast. Fish that Senko every cast. Fish your tube, your Carolina rig, your jig, whatever it is. Every cast, like there's a fish looking at it, and you've got to make him bite. You're just waiting for it. You got to stay focused. So many guys, they lose that. Oh, I finally got one bite and I got half a hook set because I wasn't paying attention. And you got to stay focused.
Yeah, that's great, strategy. We talk about that a lot. In fact, I was out on Kentucky Lake here just the other day, and same thing, the bite's getting tough. Okay, what should I be doing? Concentrate on this. Okay. He's coming around these docks. Okay, he's hitting there, he's hitting there. Okay, there's some shade by the dock he doesn't hit. So I'm not just throwing. I'm calculating. And that's, I got shorts, but that's how I got my bites, by very strategically selecting, those prime spots, because you don't have boat control. You might get 5 casts, you might get maybe 1. Totally. And then the Senko. Let's go back to that Senko. We had Alan Bernicki on a while ago, and great live stream, ton of good advice here. And he was back to the Senko, and I always think of the net, and I don't go to the Senko. A lot of times my boater's moving, and as the day goes on, if they're kind of not catching, they're getting a little jumpy, they're fishing quicker, makes you fish quicker and or deeper water, and it's hard to fish that Senko. So I'd love to get some of your Senko strategies, specific to the different conditions, and even how you hook and use them, and in what size, or anything you would like to share with us here. Because I think for all co-anglers, I keep telling myself every time, you're going to throw the Senko, and I get out there and I just don't think I can, or I miss the position, and I'm like, damn it, that's one thing I just got to do that I don't do, exactly what you said.
Okay, so with the Senko, my number one rule is go big. There's really no too big on a Senko. Bass Pro Shops makes one that's 7¼ inches long. I rig it on a 5 or a 6/0 EWG, and the thing casts a mile. It skips like a dream. Everything eats it. Like my last tournament, I got a bowfin on the frog right away before I had my actual frog fish. And then he just kept going up and down this nasty looking grassy area. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to flip the Senko. I mean, the thing's 7 inches long. You can flip it, you can cast it, you can skip it, you can drag it. And I flipped it into a pocket and did, just the lift drop. That's all I pretty much do. A lift and drop. I do a slight lift at first to feel for tension, and then a sharper lift to give it that glide and sway. And I lifted, and there was nothing there. I lifted, nothing. I start cranking the line, shooting off to the right. I smash a hook set, 4-foot pike comes out of the water, man. I'm like, 2 junk fish in a row. I mean, a 5-pound bowfin, a 3.5-foot pike, and I'm like, dang it. But, that could have just as easily been a 4-pound bass, because they eat that thing. And then we also make a 6-inch size, but Yamamoto also makes a 6-inch size. Our Bass Pro one is a little bit more denser. It's got heavier salt, so it casts better. And this is one thing that either some guys are either going to laugh at, or they're gonna nod their head and be like, "Yep, you got to do it." You got to stretch your worm. You take that Senko, I grip it in the middle, and I pull it this way, and then I pull it that way from either side, and you'll see the color kind of change. The salt will pop to the surface. It softens it up, and the movement will just keep going. You can pinch it between your fingers, and just the beat of your heart will keep the tip of that Senko moving once you stretch that plastic out. And I'm a big, as weightless as possible guy. Now, my girlfriend, I will throw it on like a VMC weighted Shenko drop dead hook with like a 16th ounce or like a 3/32, but I don't like to put too much weight on it because you really want it to keep its horizontal shimmy. If it's going nose down too much, it's not going to get bit as much. But the good thing about the 6 and especially the 7-inch size is it pulls itself through weeds. Often a Senko, it only takes one little bit of that worm to get stuck on a piece of grass and it just won't go through. Those 6 and 7-inch sizes, they pull themselves down through vegetation really well. I flip it in laydowns, into pockets of grass, and it's a do nothing. As long as you give it slack and be patient, it fishes for you. You know, you don't gotta shake it, you don't gotta tap the butt of your rod, you don't gotta do all this crazy stuff to make it vibrate. It's gonna sit there, and when the fish moves up to it, if he doesn't react, if he's in more of a feeding mood and he moves up to it, just that fish's water displacement, when he noses up to it, will make that bait flutter. And then they're going to eat it. That's why you get hit dead stick so much. You're like, oh, my bait was just sitting there and he ate it. Yeah. When he moved up to it, he displaced a minute amount of water, made that bait flutter just enough to get that strike. So fish it slow and be patient. That's been basically my Senko strategies. When I have to, I'll put a bullet sinker on there, but I don't peg it because I want the sinker to go down first and then that worm to follow as weightless as possible. And one other thing, this is what I failed to do a lot. You got to try both. You got to Texas rig it, you got to wacky rig it. And you just got to tell yourself it's one knot. I'll just cut off the Texas rig, tie on the Nico hook, wacky rig my worm, and throw it back out there. And it can make a world of difference. A fish will ignore a Texas rig Senko and annihilate a wacky rigged one, and it makes no sense.
Yeah, you're talking about those bigger worms. I was watching a bunch of, new ads or commercials or guys talking about. I think it's called the Slinko or whatever, Yamamoto. It's a bigger rib Senko, basically what you're talking about, but it's got bigger ribs. Have you seen those?
Whose brand is it?
Yamamoto, I think it's called a Slinko.
Yeah, I have seen those. They're coming out with a smaller version too. Another thing in place of a Senko that I really like that I weighed one fish in with this year, the second BFL up there. I had a 3-fish limit again, but it was only 8 pounds 9 ounces, and one of my better fish came on the bellows gill. The who makes that? The everybody's probably yelling it out right now, but anyway, the bellows gill in the 3.8-inch size. I really like that. I'll throw it on the same 4/0 hook and fish it just like a Senko. It doesn't pull itself through weeds as well, but you can swim it better, and it just does that slow fall really well.
I think that's G-Crack, isn't it? Yeah. What about deeper water? I think you may, like a really small Texas rig bullet weight. Oh, we seem to have lost him. He'll dive back in. Yeah, inside his house wasn't working, and he just had his cell phone, so I had him go back outside so he had a little bit better coverage here. Hey, while we're waiting for him to come back in here, let's talk about tournaments this weekend. I know a few of us were out at Kentucky Lake. I got 6 shorts and blanked again. Drew a really good boater. You'll see the video. He is a really great guy. Brad was down there and Dustin were down there. I believe they both got a fish apiece. And I know Eric was out at USA Bass and as well here too. So it was a pretty tough bite down at Kentucky here. Cliff Knight won at 13.8. My boater had 10.5, and he ended up in about 16th place. Really stopped up there. Hey, you guys got any tournament updates to share? Got about 25 shorts and 1 keeper. Yeah. What'd you catch the keeper on, Brad? All right, we got you back, Matt. Here, we probably lost the connection.
Oh, I hit the back button when I was trying to hit my mute button.
So yeah, I was just asking you. Oh, you got to mute. Ah, yeah, go. Thanks. I was just asking you about in deeper water with a Senko. Core Tackle has that wacky shot. I know Alan talked about putting a pagoda weight or a small little weight on. There's other companies that make the little weighted wacky or a very small unpegged weight here. What's your thoughts on those attacks and how you fish it deeper?
I really don't fish it over 5 or 6 feet deep. At that point, I'm going to Carolina rig it. Carolina rigging, I think, is your best option because it keeps it far enough away from that weight to where you can still get movement, especially if you pop that egg sinker or whatever kind of sinker you use up off the bottom. It's going to have that ripple effect and give you kind of a little whiplash in the worm there. But yeah, as far as weighting it, I really don't. I know one guy who will shove quite a bit of weight into the middle of a wacky to get it down, like 10, 12 feet in the tops of brush where he just shakes it a lot. But um, it's a 1 to 4, maybe 5 foot kind of bait for me. The exception to that would be like under docks at like say Table Rock or Lake of the Ozarks. You might have 15 feet of water under that dock, but because it's pretty clear, especially on Table Rock, those fish can come from 5, 8, 10, 12 feet away to hit it. So in that case, I'm probably going to use. I'm partial to the. Oh gosh, it's a Strike King. It's a weighted wacky head. It's got titanium weed guards, and I really like that one. I use the VMC crossover bands, but you really got to skip their hole. Don't use their hole. Hook it through the band and get a little bit of worm because that hole it just breaks way too easy. And if you don't get a little bit of that worm, you can if they get one end of it and like you've used a little scent on your worm and you set the hook and they just got worm. I brought in nothing but the collar and the hook. Like that VMC band just slides right off the worm. And yeah, I was using the 6 millimeter size. The 5 millimeter size fits your trick worms really well, and then that 7 millimeter size will fit those fatter Senkos like a 6 or 7 inch. But the 6 millimeter is the right one for the regular Senko. But I always hook a little bit of band and worm because I don't like their pre-made hole. I can't hear you at all. I didn't hear any of that. I don't know if I hit something wrong. There we go. Now you're back.
No, because I was on mute and talking. It was my error. Brad was asking if you'd fish with boater Jeff Ritter yet up there in the Great Lakes Division yet.
No, I have not fished with Ritter. I hear he's a great guy to fish with. Friend of mine, Lee Lewis. I believe he fished with Ritter. He might have even have won with Ritter. I can't remember now, but I've heard Ritter's a really good guy. He doesn't front end people. He wants you to catch fish just as much as he does. But haven't fished with him. I have fished with some nice guys up there. I've fished with a few assholes too. I don't really remember a lot of guys' names. If we get along well and like I'm gonna fish with him again, like he's like, hey, keep my number and holler at me. Like I had Hunter Van Dues the last tournament. He was like, holler at me, we'll fish again if you want to pre-fish, But some of the other guys, they can't wait for you to get off their boat, and it's like you can't wait to get off their boat either.
It's probably a little bit different here. It seems like moving baits aren't as big of a deal up there. At least from the feedback we had fishing down at Ohio River, river fishing, and up there in the Mississippi in the Quad Cities area. I mean, a couple of crankbait bites, but even few on a spinnerbait, chatterbait, but a lot of soft plastics is seems to be the way. What do you think?
I've caught a lot of big fish in the La Crosse area on a chatterbait, but I throw one a little bit different than a lot of people throw. It's got a bigger blade. It's got a swim jig type head, so it comes through grass really well. The blade does not connect with the head, so it doesn't make a lot of noise like a jackhammer. It still vibrates. It throws off a lot of vibration. Um, but the fish just haven't heard it or seen its movement as much as they have other chatterbaits. So I really like fishing it. It's again, it's a shallow thing for me. I've got to have 3 to 4 feet of water with vegetation or wood ambush points. It's an ambush bait for me. If there's nowhere for the fish to be sitting in ambush, heavy cover kind of thing, it's not going to be my go-to. I'm not going to try to cover water, empty water or open type of water with it. I'm not going to throw it at schooling fish. I'm going to turn to more of a swim jig to cover water like that, or a jig and minnow, or a jig and paddle tail for like those schooling fish kind of thing. But as far as, I've always got a chatterbait. If I'm on pools 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm definitely going to have a chatterbait. When we go to Winneconne, I will definitely have a chatterbait around the right kind of stuff. I'd like to fish a lot of rock at Winneconne. I would rather fish rock than the grass, but you never know where you're going to get, who they're going to go. Especially at Winneconne, you got 2, 3 different lakes. You got 2 different rivers. They could go up the Wolf River. They could go up the Fox River. You could be fishing Winnebago. You could be fishing Winneconne. And there's a third smaller lake I can't remember the name of either. But that's I'm looking forward to that one. I've never done extremely well on the Winnebago chain, but it feels like I just need the right guy. You know what I mean?
And it goes back to that, having experience, been there before, mental confidence, all come into play here. So, how many more events are left in the Great Lakes? Is that your next one? When is that? And how many more you got?
Yeah, that one is mid-August. I believe it's the 14th or 16th. I can't remember. It's right in the middle of the month. And then the next one is the Super, and that's going to be in September.
Um, how is it to get a boater link up there? I got behind the ball here, and I did the Toyota Series this year, so I ate up a lot of my fishing time. I really wanted to jump in 1 or 2 of those Great Lakes here. How many boaters do you usually have? Are you usually short on co-anglers or have extra co-anglers? What's a typical deal up there if some of the guys want to go try it out from down here?
There are a ton of guys that wait till the last month, 2 weeks before the event to get a link. So I would definitely jump on like the Great Lakes Facebook page. There's a Great Lakes BFL division Facebook page specifically, and that one's a real good one. But I would say the numbers are usually pretty even. You don't get a lot of those we need a this, we need a that text at the last minute. I would say there's probably usually still coanglers on the waiting list, but it's been pretty even so far this year, and we've been having right around 100 boats. I think there was, I want to say 98 or so in the first one, and I think we dropped a couple in the second, but it's usually around a 90 to 100 boat field. It depends. Like last year, there was a bunch of BASS events that was going to be on the river, and a lot of guys couldn't fish the BFLs because of that. It was off limits for them because of the tournament coming up. So there was a lot less last year, but it's not as many as it was though back in 2021. Back in 21 and 2022, you had 115, 120 boats, and it's definitely gone down since then. I don't really know why. I probably just less guys fishing it because they know they can't win. They can't fish the river.
Yeah, kind of sort of same thing down here. Hey, John's asking, have you ever had a boater you didn't just jive with, and how'd you handle it? I'll add that on.
Oh, my very first boater in 2021 on Table Rock. It was going to be back-to-back days because the first tournament had been scheduled for February. The lake iced over, and they rescheduled it for the day after the second tournament, which they both ended up being like April 17th and 18th or something. And my very first boater, I mean, he was just this cranky old guy. I don't remember his name. Super proud of his boat. Tried to hit every no wake buoy there was. Like he would literally aim for them and miss at the last second, like going around turns so sharply. And he would have the boat pointed straight at, say, a tree or a laydown or something. And maybe there's a laydown that way and there's a dock down that way. It didn't matter which one I cast at. I was fishing ahead of him. Don't be casting ahead of me now. I'm going that way. I mean, all day. Like, and then he'd get snagged, take us right up into the dock, and spook all the fish. And then, God forbid, I make a cast and get snagged, because then, you can't be getting snagged like that. I ain't going back for that stuff. And then he'd have me net every little fish. Like, it didn't matter if I could tell it was a 12-incher from 20 yards away. He had me out with the net. The nicest thing he did all day was we got to this one bank. He was like, all right, I've got my 5. You throw that chatterbait parallel, and I'll let you fish this bank. And I got my second keeper doing that. But after that, he's just back to sight fishing. And he was all right. My hat blew off, and he said we could have gone back for it, but I didn't care. But I was honestly about halfway through that first day. I was like, man, I don't even want to do the event tomorrow. This is not what I thought this was going to be like. Like, I was catching shorts, dragging a shaky head behind the boat, but I had a keeper spot on a Ned rig, and ended up with that keeper largemouth on a chatterbait. But the next day, I had a lot better guy. I weighed 1 fish, but it was bigger than my 2 previous ones. So it got me hooked. Like I went across the stage, Alan Gray, with all his exuberant, boisterous personality and excitement. He got me hooked, and I couldn't wait to weigh in again the next day. And I kind of had tournament fever after that. I was fishing the Hoosier, I was fishing the Illini, trying to figure out what I liked, and I found the Great Lakes, and I really like it a lot. Although the name is ridiculous. With the Great Lakes and the Detroit division, what do they call themselves? The Michigan division. They fish the Detroit River, Lake St. Clair. They fish the Great Lakes. So we need to get the Michigan division to change its name to Great Lakes, and then the formerly Great Lakes division can just rename itself the Wisconsin division, and then it'll all make sense. You tell people, oh yeah, I go down to the LBL and I tell people, yeah, I fish the Great Lakes division. Oh, what's it like fishing on Lake Erie? How do you like Lake Superior? No, we fish in Mississippi, bro. We're not on the Great Lakes.
Totally. You guys probably have to be called the Badgers or something, huh?
Well, if the guys who fish the Great Lakes are just going to call themselves Michigan Division, then we should just rename it the Wisconsin Division, and the Michigan Division can be Great Lakes Division, and then Wisconsin will just be Wisconsin Division. That makes sense. We fish the Mississippi, and they fish the Wolf River chain of lakes. So it's all in Wisconsin. Just call it Wisconsin Division.
Okay, here's a question we always get. You find it harder to fish behind the scoper, and kind of what strategies do you use when you get someone that's heavily scoping?
It totally depends on where they're scoping and how they are scoping and what kind of person they are. I've had some scopers that are like, throw where I'm casting, throw 5 feet to the right of where I'm casting, and they'll literally like let you get bites. But other guys will just keep you off of anything specifically. Even once they're done fishing something, they know you remember where it is, and they'll go like the long way around it so you can't even cast to it. And then you got other guys, like I fished the regional down on Dale Hollow, which is pretty much why I didn't fish LBL this year, because that live scoping and 150 feet of water, it's ridiculous. All I did all day was I threw a spook, and I caught smallmouth, but they weren't big enough, because down there they got to be over 16. Or no, you can't keep them if they're over 16 to 21. They got to be over 22, and you can keep like one under 16 inches. And of course, I caught like 18 inches. So it was fun throwing the spook, but it wasn't productive. Of course, when your boater tells you, "Oh, I caught a 7-pounder doing that last week," it kind of keeps you doing it. But so when it comes to scoping around guys, I I'm a big believer in a lighter weight. If they're throwing 3/8, throw a quarter. If they're throwing a quarter, throw 3/16. And don't try and hit the fish on the nose. Try and just comb the open water. Count it down to 5 and slowly reel your swim bait in. Pause, count it down 3, twitch, twitch, twitch. Try and work different depth columns. Try and work different water columns, different retrieve rates. One thing I'll do is I'll actually throw a variation of what's called the donkey rig. The donkey rigs, we got 2 flukes tied to a barrel swivel. You do that, but with 3 or even 2.5-inch swim baits at different lengths. And it's I don't want to call it a mini umbrella rig, but it's kind of like a mini umbrella. You got 2 little baits going, and you can throw that and get bites that they might not get. And then it comes down to the depth that they're scoping. If they're scoping, over 50 feet of water, you're basically screwed trying to drag on the bottom. But if they're in less than 30 feet of water, I've even drug bottom in 35 feet. The guy that I learned it from was during a regional down on, the ugly stepchild of the Ozark Lakes. Which one is it? It's that little one. I can't remember. A mountain. I can't remember what it's, it's not the 2 main ones. It's the 3rd little one down on the border. But anyway, we were fishing a regional there.
Truman or Stockton?
No, it's not Truman or Stockton. I grew up fishing it. It's connected to Bull Shoals, but it's not. Well, Norfolk. We're on Norfolk. And we're dragging brush. I'm with a local pro. I can't remember his name. I could if I remembered it. But he'd like won the thing. He'd won tournaments down there. And he's dragging a jig, 3/4 ounce jig, 60 yards behind the boat in 30 feet of water through brush piles. And that's what we did all day, both of us. And my problem was being in the back of the boat. My jig was 20 to 30 feet behind his. So he'd get a bite, and I'd have to either hit my button or crank in and net his fish. And by his jigs getting to the brush pile before mine was the problem. But I caught some fish. I caught a lot of spots. I did it the next day with the next guy that I fished with, and I weighed 3 fish doing it the next day. But yeah, up to about 30 feet of water, I will drag something on bottom. It all depends on the speed they're going. If they're going too fast, like they will get on that pedal and they will just crank left, right. I mean, they will just zigzag through the water and looking left and right. And it's like, dude, come on. You're scaring them. You're spooking them. There's the reason you're looking left and right is because those fish are swimming away from you. Let's get out there and throw at them this way. Stop pinging them with your sonar every 5 seconds. But when they're doing that, there's almost, hopefully you're within reach of a riprap bank or something, and you can drag where the riprap meets the bottom. That's the most productive spot. You don't have to bounce it. If you can bounce it down the rocks, that's good. But if you can't bounce it down the rocks, try to hit where the riprap ends and drag the base of the riprap. But yeah, it all comes down to the depth they're scoping. And again, throw that spook, throw a topwater, throw a spy bait, anything to fish as many different sections of the water column as you can.
Hey, that's some awesome advice here. It kind of makes me think of the next thing here. Whether they're a scoper or not here, most guys you can, ask to put on side scan or 360 or down scan or a map on one and the other. If you've got one console unit, what do you like to see it on? And if you've got 2 console units, how do you like to get them set up for the Coangler?
Well, that's pretty luxury if they're willing to do that. I've fished over 50 events, and I probably only had about 15, 20 guys ask me if I wanted something on the screen. And I've asked probably another 30 of them if they could put something on there. And I would have to say about 25 to 35 times I've been told, nope, got to save battery. I shut them off. So I don't count on having any kind of screen. And if we're really shallow, I would rather have the side scan. But if we're over 10, 15 feet of water, I would rather have down scan, because I want to see the bottom contour. I want to know if it's bumpy or if it's flat, if, I've got some grass coming up. Sometimes you can tell logs and sticks and stuff, but mainly I want to see that bottom contour, because I want to drag over what looks bumpy. But yeah, I like to have a map that shows like the graph, the contour, the depth changes, and then down scan. That's probably my choice. Unless we're fishing really shallow with a lot of hard cover, like rock and wood, and then I'd rather have the 360 thing. But the 360 thing, you're almost you're looking over, and then you're looking over because you got to fish back at that stuff. Everything you're seeing on the 360 is back there, so you're over your shoulder, you're back. You're over your shoulder, you're back here. I almost don't even want a 360 because it's just, you're fishing too far back.
Yeah, definitely. If you're moving, the 360 is so slow according to how fast they have it on. You got to wait till it scans an area, and you instantaneously got to use it as you're forward facing, but it's only good for that second, unless you're sitting still. Like, I had a lot of times I've had my guy basically spot locked or on a spot and scope, and he's throwing that minnow at a log or a stump or a rock or something. And I'm like, okay, there's another stump over here. There's a brush pile over there. There's what I mean? Something over there. But again, it's not live. If you're moving, yeah, you're always in the wrong spot. Agreed.
Yeah,
Last thing is like old-fashioned 2D. Old-fashioned 2D. If you're talking about fishing a different column or looking at where the fish are, sometimes 2D is kind of what you want to see.
Yeah, if they've got you sitting like on those bars out there in the middle of Lake Kentucky, and he's spot locked and he's working a particular row of stumps or whatever, and you're able to watch that dial go around, and then okay, there's a laydown or there's a log, or then it can be really handy. Yeah, but in that situation, 2D, like when they're spot locked and you've got that 2D and nothing's changing, then it's no good. But when they spot lock, I try to fan cast, cover water, and then try to pick stuff apart. But you gotta be creative. You gotta stay open minded. You gotta think outside the box a lot of the time.
Okay, so what events did you fish in Illini this year? I know I met you, I think at the first Shelbyville, was it? Is that the only one you fished, or you fished any others?
Yeah, I probably should have waited for the second Shelbyville event because I would have preferred to fish the summertime one as opposed to the spring one. But I was just kind of on a roll this spring, catching a lot of fish, fishing a certain way on certain baits, and I thought I could make it work at Shelbyville. And I had a really nice fish in the first half hour, 45 minutes of fishing, and I thought I could duplicate it. But my boater only caught 2 fish, and he was just not fishing the way I needed. He'd get too close to the riprap too fast, and then I'd have to back drag fish it. And I throw a stupid tube a lot, and you've got to fish that sucker slow, like nearly Senko slow, and just drag it and bump it and inch it along. And when they're moving at 3-4 miles an hour, cranking a square bill or a spinnerbait or whatever along the riprap, you really can't do any of that. It's like moving that tube or that jig or whatever you're fishing and fast forward, and you got to hope that you drop it on his head. Basically, you flip it out there at the right spot, it falls on his head and he eats it. But the way I got my first one, he went wide around the riprap, and I was able to throw at the angle and drag the corner, and I got one right away. And I thought, okay, if he just keeps fishing it wide like this, I'll catch a few more. But he started getting real tight and paralleling. I mean, he was a really nice guy, but he fished history, and he fished the same thing over and over and over again. And I couldn't come up with any more fish. So I should have jumped in the later Shelbyville one, when they're doing more offshore points and fishing more structure and stuff like that. But like I said earlier, it's really that Paducah, Ohio event that I really, really want to fish. And they haven't done that the last 2 years. I love that one.
Yeah, I think we were down there last year, but it was 2 years before. It seemed like
I had a kidney stone that event. I was signed up, I was registered, and I got a kidney stone like on a Wednesday, and I didn't pass it until like Monday or Tuesday. I was so upset. I had to call Alan Gray. I was like, Alan, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. You got to give my spot to somebody else. And he was like, I feel you, brother. Those are no fun.
What are your strategies for the Ohio River? I mean, man, there's a lot of junk fishing in there. There's a lot of dead water here. Man, I mean, unless you went to the Cumberland or Tennessee, I don't know anyone that did kind of worthwhile on the Ohio itself.
Okay, so going out of Galconda, when you got to fish the backwaters, the creeks. You know, you got Bayou Creek, and you got what is that? Lusk Creek, and then there's another one I can't remember the name of. It's on the opposite side of Bayou, and it's up a couple miles upriver. But basically, they go in those creeks and they flip every laydown, every stump, every island, every point, and you gotta hope that you get bit behind them doing that. I mean, I was lucky enough. My first Illini year at the Galconda event, I weighed 2, and I got both of them on like black and blue 3-inch creature baits. My boater was fishing like a Texas rig tube, so I wanted to have something that moved a little bit more water, just in case they wanted something with more action. I think I got one of them on a I hate it when name of baits just pop out of my head. Basically like a 3 1/4 inch creature bait, a little power bait. It was either a crawfatty, that's what it was, little crawfatty junior. But I heard other guys catching them on buzz baits, like a little 1/8 ounce buzz bait down there does really well. 1/4 ounce spinner baits, low rolled over wood and stuff. But for sure, I would much rather be on the Cumberland or the Tennessee, and preferably the Cumberland. It has much better bank structure as far as I'm concerned. It's got more turns, it's got more twists, it's got more laydowns, it's got more rock wing dams, mid current breaks, and stuff like that. The Tennessee is one big long straight shot, and you really gotta pick apart all the little things on the Tennessee. I would rather go up the Cumberland any day. And as far as baits up the Cumberland, I like tubes, chatterbait. I've caught even little 13-inch smallmouth on a big old chatterbait up there. Like, you would not think they even get the trailer in their mouth and they're still eating it. But Texas rig, the Carolina rig, and a Mojo rig, where you take that Carolina rig and just downsize it to 1/4 inch sinker, 18-inch leader, 2-aught hook, with like your little 3-inch pit boss, that kind of thing.
Mojo rig, I haven't heard that. Mini Carolina rig I've heard, but the Mojo rig, I like that. You gotta get your mojo on. Yeah, a lot of
With a Mojo rig, you throw a cylinder sinker, those long, skinny cylinder sinkers, and that's what they call the Mojo rig. But basically, it's just a miniature Carolina.
Oh, I think I was reading about that as a free rig. Basically, your drop shot weight and it's free, right?
Well, a free rig is like a Texas rig, but instead of a bullet sinker, you've got a bass casting sinker, like a bell sinker, and then a bead, and then your hook. With the Mojo rig, you still got your sliding weight of choice, whether it's a bullet sinker or a cylinder sinker, and then a swivel or bead, then swivel, and then your leader, usually 12 to 18 inches.
Yeah, a lot of guys are liking Galconda. I know they used to go out of Galconda. I saw the old FLW events and people talk about it. I don't know. I don't know why they don't get that back on the schedule. Maybe we should rally Robert to get us back there next year.
Well, I'm all for fishing the Ohio River, but not Galconda. If you go out of Galconda, then you're above the dam and you're forced to fish either the main river or the creeks, and it's like trying to find a spotted bass on the main river that's over 12 inches. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. There's so many 8-10 inch spotted bass on the main river that, like, I fished it for a dozen hours and never caught a keeper spot. But Now down on the Cumberland, I've caught and weighed several keeper spots. But if the Illini starts going back to the Ohio River, I would much rather go out of Paducah than Galconda. I love the Cumberland. I love it. I love going up the Cumberland, catching smallmouth and spotted bass. I don't see why it's not more popular. I love it.
Now, out of Paducah, that's quite a ride, isn't it? It's even a longer ride, isn't it, than down to Tennessee? Well, I guess it's about 25 miles down to the Kentucky Dam, and someone said it was 35, 40, or 50 miles to get to the Barkley Dam, but maybe you're not going all the way to the dam.
Well, the closer you can get to the dam, the more and the bigger the fish are. But no, so from Paducah up to the mouth of the Cumberland, I want to say it's about 20, 25 minutes in good weather. The last time I did it, it was raining. It was storming real bad. I don't remember how long it took us, but and then, I mean, yeah, if you want to go all the way to the dam, you'd probably be running for at least 45 minutes, but you don't got to go all that way. You find a good section that doesn't look like too many other boats have been up and down it, and just pick it apart. I love those spots where it looks like there's boulders coming out of the bank. It's like bedrock, and it's got swirling eddy pockets all through it. And then you'll find spots where the rock changes, and you've got like a shallow bar coming off, and I've Carolina rigged around those and caught them. Throwing square bills, but not your regular square bill. On the Tennessee and the Cumberland, I back off to a little square bill, like the Bagley baby O's or whatever they're called. I like those a lot. They got the hard rattle in them.
Yeah, I definitely got that advice for some good people. The 1.5s and even the 1.0 square bills there, yeah. And for tough fisheries or when it gets tough here, yeah. Matt's agreeing with you, read the bank surroundings and then, pick the bait. And then sometimes you don't know. You just got to experiment like you were talking earlier. You got to try something. Is it the color? Is it the speed? Is it the column? Is it the bait? Yep.
One thing you were talking about earlier, what to do when guys are scoping. I wish I had saved it because I saw a YouTube short the other day that was really good. It was basically a dude on the back of the boat, filmed from his perspective. He's like, this is what to do. You're seeing out of his eyes. You're not seeing him. And he's like, this is what you do when your boater won't stop scoping. First, reach in your box. Get you a big old jig. He pulls out like a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 jig. Put you a big old meaty craw trailer on there. This was like I want to say it was like a Zoom or it's either a Zoom Ultra Speed, Zoom Super Speed, or it was a Cowboy, Yamamoto Cowboy. And then just bomb that sucker. And and it shows him bomb casting over and over. Drag it, and you're going to catch more fish than he is, guaranteed. So I wish I should have saved that one. That was a good one.
So have you ever fished Wren? We got Wren next Saturday. You ever fish good old Wren Lake?
Yeah, I got my first top 10 on Wren Lake. I basically fished chatterbait most of the day, and this was one of those situations where you're not so much reading the bank, but like reading the weather conditions. So the early part of the day, it was real overcast and even like a little stormy, like it was raining on some parts of the lake. And I got one keeper at the resort there on the backside of the Rip Rap Causeway on a chatterbait. It was over 2.5. It was like a 210, 212. And then the second one, the sun had come out and the clouds had broke apart and the fish were chasing shad. My boater had just caught one about 2 pounds on a spinnerbait, and he finally moved the boat up a little ways. This was back near the ramp. And I made a cast with a chatterbait, silver, and like a white trailer color, and boom, stuck another one almost 3 pounds. And those are the only 2 fish I had. I think I had 6 something. No, not quite 6. I had like 5. I can't remember what I had, but a little over 5 pounds. And I made the top 10 in 10th place. But with Wren, I mean, it's just I caught those fish. One was on hardcover, and then the other one was just chasing shad in like 2-3 feet of water on the back of a windbreak. You know that weird island thing right behind weigh-in. Like if you leave, or it's between the beach and the weigh-in. It's like a weird island thing that jets way out. But on the back side of that, it's like a windbreak, and they'll get up in there real shallow and chase bait. And that's where we caught our last 2 fish at. But you might be flipping bushes. If you're with Michael Black, you might actually be fishing offshore. I was on Wren Lake with Michael Black one time, and we were not on the bank at all. He went over by the dam, and he fished in about 8-10 feet of water off that drop. Because when you got current going over the dam, that ledge fishes almost like something on the Tennessee River. It's almost like ledge fishing. And he caught 2 up there on those ledges right in front of the spillway. And then he went over above the bridge. And I'd have to be on a map to tell you exactly where we are. But he parked himself about 30 yards off an island and just started fan casting what I thought was open water, dragging his jig. And the way that I fish a stupid tube a lot, is how Michael Black fishes his jig, with the rod tip nearly touching the water, and you're just slowly turning the reel handle and using the reel to move that bait as nose down across the bottom as possible without coming up at all. He never hopped his jig or stroked it once until he got hung up, and then he would shake it loose. And that man, I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Michael Black. You probably are, but that man lost 18 jigs that day. He broke off 18 times rather than go up and free his jig. Not taking the boat up on him, Matthew. I'll break it off. This is why I bought the jig factory. I mean, he owns the jig that he throws. And then he puts a rage crawl on it. Or a rage chunk. I'm sorry, rage chunk. But the spot that I learned from him up there, I went back to with another boater another time. And I got 2 casts up there, and boom, second cast, I pulled one off of it. But it's literally offshore for Wren. You're 30 yards off the bank. There's nothing around you, and you're just dragging bottom.
Yeah, that sounds like it might be Gun Creek, those little islands where the telephone poles are.
No, definitely not there. Not there. It might be somewhere around there.
So let's see here. You got some time off. Is the July Great Lakes tournament already over with? When was that?
Oh, they didn't do one in July. They skipped the really hot months up there. We had one, Prairie du Chien, which is usually the August tournament. They switched, and they did it back in early June. Then we skipped July, and we got one in August. It'll be at Winneconne, and then the Super tournament is back at La Crosse in September.
You happen to remember what dates that Super is?
Oh, I know. I want to say it's more towards the end of the month. I think it's late September, like 27, 28, 29, 27 and 28, something like that. I'm not 100% sure. I take screenshots, and then I put in for my days off, and then I kind of forget. I try and pay for them. I got a link. I was linked with the same guy for the last 2 years, so we don't worry too much about doing it too far ahead of time. Actually, last time he actually forgot. I had to call him up. I was like, dude, today's the deadline. Have you signed up? I haven't gotten an email yet. And he was like, oh shit. But it all works out. I think this year it's actually, they're doing it like the Toyotas. You can link up to like 2 days before or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a weird rule on that. I lost my link for Illini, and once you're past the deadline, they kind of lock people in who are in. So I found another link, and he was happy. And I went to link with him, and he said, you can't because you already have a link. I'm like, no, I lost them. They're like, no, you already confirmed into the tournament. But if you call in, not online, but if you call in that last week and you're a new boater and you're a new coangler, then you get in. Because I think at that date, they draw a line on the priority registration. If you're in, you're in. It doesn't matter if you have a link or not. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, you can get confirmed without a link. You just got to sign up really early. I did that my first year in the Illini because I didn't understand the whole linking thing. It's actually really frustrating. I was like, MLF has the boaters' names, they have the Coanlgler names. Why don't they just link people for us? Why do we have to go through this linking hullabaloo? But once you get it figured out, it makes it more simple.
Yeah, same thing for me. It wasn't really clear in their write-up, and I didn't know anyone. I was just going in cold the first time, and it's like on the job training. You learn as you go, like coangling. Uh, okay. Kind of final thoughts on coangler tips and strategies.
Well, tips: don't get discouraged. That bite can come literally on your last cast. It never has for me on my last cast, but I have gotten last minute fish, like literally the last 5 minutes. In fact, I'll run back to the last Great Lakes tournament. The guy who was frogging all day, he caught no fish. I had one, maybe a pound and a half. I had that bowfin on a frog, that big hike on the Senko, and it was just the bites were few and far between. And about 20 minutes before we got to go check in, he puts down his rod and he says, "You fish. Maybe you'll get a second one. I really thought this was going to go better. Blah blah blah." So we frog a little bit more. Just me fishing, and I'm not really feeling it. I'm like, if we got time and you want me to fish something, I'd like to hit that riprap up there. So he's like, sure. He kicks trolling motor on 10. We run up to the riprap. I got like 10 minutes to fish. I grab my stupid tube rod and like 10 casts in, boom. Well, almost 3-pounder. I'm like, there he is. I set the hook. I'm cranking. I flip it in the boat. It hits the bottom of the boat and comes unhooked. And he jumps down there. He's grabbing my fish. He's like, I got it for you, bro. Get another one. He puts it in the live well for me, and I keep casting. I had to fix my tube, but I didn't get any more bites. But that's one of those situations where literally it's the wire. It's, and sometimes the boater lets you fish something. Sometimes you'll get them behind him, like they get in a hurry and they don't fish fast enough. So just fish slow. Tips and stuff. I honestly, after 4 years of fishing coangling, I don't even think about crankbaits. I have like maybe 10 crankbaits in my box. I don't think I've ever weighed a fish. Yes, I have. On Shelbyville, I caught a keeper fish on a 3XD. So that's one of my go-tos. I will throw a 3XD crankbait in 4 feet of water or 10 feet of water. But other than that, like square bills, lipless, I barely fish them unless I know we're going to be on a lot of riprap and current. Like the Tennessee, the Cumberland, you can fish a riprap current there because the boater, he can't hug it. He can't stay right parallel to that bank as much as he can on a lake because that current is unpredictable and he's gotta be off it a little bit. So you can throw crankbaits in current and stuff like that. But I don't fish a lot of crankbaits. I don't fish a spinnerbait unless it's raining. Well, super windy. If it's super windy, I'll pick up a spinnerbait over a chatterbait. But I don't throw paddle tails on chatterbaits. I use like those bladed jig style that are sectioned. I'm not saying a paddle tail won't work. A paddle tail Zacho will catch the shit out of them. But I just, you have your confidence and you have limited tackle that you can take. You can't take every trailer there is. You can't take every plastic there is. You got to pick what you're going to fish. That's probably the best advice is pack what you're going to fish. If you know you're not going to fish it, don't pack it. When my boater told me we're going to be frogging all day, I didn't even take my Ned rig rod. I didn't take my tiny tubes. I didn't take any of that shit. I barely took my tube rod with me, and I'm glad I did. But, fish your confident baits and pack what you're going to fish. Just because it might catch a fish isn't a reason to pack it. If you're not going to fish it, it's not going to catch a fish. So pack what you're going to fish. And that coming from a guy whose backpack weighs probably damn near 60 pounds. I try to cut stuff out. I just can't.
That's a really good strategy. Every year, every tournament, I do the same thing. I come back and I say, I took too much stuff. I should take more plastics. I took too much other stuff. I should take more plastics. And I got plastic heavy and I had to go back. And, I have too many options. I can't find what I'm looking for. And really refining how you pack and organize your tackle is a continuous challenge. But on the mental side of the game, yeah, you got to have confidence in what you're fishing. Color, a light and a dark color. You don't need 5 colors of the same thing because you don't, I mean, if you get on them as a co-angler and you catch 3 and you run out of a pack of something, oh well. You know what? The boater probably has something he'll give you if you found something that he doesn't have too. So, yeah, I think that's a good one. And the mental game. The mental game, I think, is bigger than anything. We talk about that. They say golf is a mental game. I think this is a bigger mental game, especially for the co-angler, than golf is, if you're a golfer or ever golfed.
Oh, it's way more of a mental game than it is in golf. I mean, yeah, sure, golf is a mental game. Any sport is a mental game where you have, especially where you have an opponent. Golf, you don't really have, you have opponents, but you're not playing against them. You don't have to outmaneuver to get past him to get to the goal like a soccer player or a football player. In fishing, you have not only things you have to maneuver around to get to the goal, which is the fish. You have to get your bait to the fish, but then you have to outsmart the fish itself. If your bait looks like crap, it doesn't matter if you get it to the fish or not. It's got to trick the fish once it gets there. It's got to be the right bait. It's got to be at the right time. It's got to be at the right speed. It's got to be the right scent. I mean, I carry probably 6 different scents because I don't want to use the same one as the boater. I fish behind Michael Black all day, throwing the same scent that he was. We were both using bait fuel. It was brand new. It just came out. And that was a big mistake because I didn't catch my first keeper until I switched to chompers. I put on chompers garlic, flipped the lay down, boom, 3.5 pounder keeper fish on my way to the regional. But yeah, I carry a lot of different scent because I don't want to have the same one as the other guy.
That's a really interesting topic. That's a topic we have not hit at all on this one, or haven't hit in a very long time, is believer in scents in a different sense. I've got bait fuel. Everyone used to use it maybe 2 years ago, and it seems like because it was new then, but now I see there's a bunch of different products out there. What are your favorite scents?
So I use Dr. Juice in the spring, like March, April, May, because it's full of pheromones, hormones, and bait fish oils. And I think in that pre-spawn, spawn time, the pheromones, caromones, and hormones in that really work well. Summertime, I like Chompers garlic and Chompers anise. Chompers anise is a very underrated scent. What I learned from Tom Moan there on the Great Lakes when he was pulling those giant smallmouth out left and right with his Carolina rig, he was literally basting that speed craw in Procure crawfish gel. Like he was on the deck of his boat on all fours, hands and knees, rubbing that crawfish gel over every bit of that speed craw. And so I use that one. I use bait fuel, Chompers anise, Chompers garlic, Dr. Juice, and I have 1 or 2 more that I experiment with. One is basically the Rooster Tail Trophy Bass Spray. It's basically an anise blend. It's not that much different than Chompers. Chompers is a little different. And then Dry Creek makes a gel that's a Trophy Bass gel, and I like it too. I use gel a lot inside tubes. When I go to slide the head into my tube, I use a gel.
What's that? The new gel that came out this year, last year, Bait Pop or something like that. Have you used that one?
No, I know Thump Gel is a thing. What's his name? A guy that wears the cowboy hat, fishes the Toyota series. Can't believe he's fishing with his YouTube channel. It's fishing with he's got a goofy ass name. I can't remember it now. But anyway, he uses Thump Gel a lot. I can't believe I can't think of his name. Nordby, fishing with Nordby. Nordby uses Thump Gel.
Yeah, Brad's got all the answers. Hey, any last minute questions from the crowd here before we let Matt go here? We're running on an hour 20. I like to respect his time and other people's time. People have early jobs here. They want to go to bed at 9 o'clock because they're getting up at 4 or 5 a.m. It's like I hate doing that on tournament day. I can't imagine doing that all week, but that's the way it is here. Okay, still looking for co-anglers here. Okay, hey, glad we could finally make this work, man. This was a great session. You gave us a lot of great insights here that you've gained over 4 years. I feel way behind you with my 4 years in, but I'm doing this to learn. I learn every day. I learn every live stream. I learn every outing out. I learn some more, and I realize the more I know, the more I don't know. So we all appreciate you coming on. And good luck to you for the rest of the year.
Well, thanks again for having me, Jeff. It was good talking to you. I hope somebody out there is a keeper fish and weighs in off something that they learned here today.
Yeah, awesome. We'll talk about that next time out. All right, thanks so much, everyone. Till next time, we'll see you at Wren Lake. Keep your lines tight. Thanks.